going on, YouTube world? Steve, Vincenzo, and our guest tonight, once again returning. I don't know why, with his giving us his time, his insight, his knowledge, stories. Jeff Morris returns, and we'll talk some hockey, talk maybe some MLB playoffs. We'll put him and Vinny in a battle royal, no holds barred, the old blue WWF steel cage from the 80s. You go tete-a-tete with some card knowledge and just have some fun. It's been a while since Jeff's been on here, and always good to have him back on. So people don't have to listen to us the whole time. There's plenty of videos of us talking out there. Vinny, when he gets on that soapbox and starts raising up on the forklift and the scissor lift, it's out there. So to get you on here, Jeff, thank you again for making time for us. And
not a problem at all, guys. It's a lot of fun coming on.
So what's new in your world?
Hockey season has started. They say that hockey season doesn't start till Thanksgiving where you live, but our Thanksgiving was yesterday, so hockey season's underway for us. So Thanksgiving and the first packs of Tim Hortons are open, and we're ready to go. And the baseball playoffs have been fantastic. Loving the NFL this year. NBA is going to be starting. Does it start this week? There's a games on. I'm just not sure if they're preseason or not.
I think a week away.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like next Tuesday-ish or something.
So, that's why October is the best month. Other than the wind chill was in Fahrenheit in the 20s in Ottawa today. But other than that, October is the best month.
Yeah, our temps dropped over the last 3-4 days. It was mid-70s last week, and weekend brought some rain and wind, and got down to 27. And I think the high today was 41. So
it just feels cold this time of year, like colder than the Menendez brothers, like just cold.
Mother Nature's plotting against us harder than they plotted against their parents. So it's hey, don't be shaking your head down there.
This is a family show.
That's why we're getting rid of
family.
Well, the Menendez family, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Courtside tickets and a Mark Jackson pick, and that's about it.
Or closer to the Adams family. So.
That's all right. It's a family nonetheless. Now, if you said it was the Manson family, then
that's originally what I was thinking, but I was like, probably wasn't going to go there.
Don't worry, I'll take the baton. I'll run with that. I just don't have anything on my forehead of questionable stenciling or marker tattoos. So, the weather. Ugh. I was hoping it'd hold out a little longer, but they're talking, I think, snow middle of next week.
Did you guys ever watch Twin Peaks? David Lynch, the creator, has his own YouTube channel, and every day he picks a ping pong ball from 1 to 10, and it's the lucky number of the day, and then he gives the weather from where he's sitting, looking out the window in LA. And that's it for the day. And he's got like tens of thousands of people watch this. It's the most fascinating thing. If you ever have 30 seconds to kill, you'll laugh your ass off. It's so funny.
I was going to say that's probably the key right there, when you only have to capture someone's attention for 30 to 45 seconds. You can rack up those views quick. I mean, a lot of our old mail videos where YouTube used to cap it at like 10 minutes. And then it was, I think, 15, and then it went up. So then I was able to really dive into the hour-long videos, and I think my Josh Johnson one was about an hour and 48 minutes. But yeah, when you got 30 seconds. I'm like, I can do this and check out what's going on. Tend to, especially in this day and age, the old TikTok generation, a couple generations below us that really indulge in that short attention span.
Well, YouTube Shorts have a tendency to garner a crap ton more views than normal videos too. So
Yeah.
And it must be harder than hell to write a college essay in 140 characters or less.
I'd imagine so. I know my daughter was quibbing about something our English teacher had given her the other day, and she's in 9th grade, and it was like an intro that he wanted a 150-word intro, and I'm like, wow, that's... And he said to her in the class, well, I don't want it to be wordy either. I'm like, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot there. I mean, you really can't do that without giving away like the body of the subject of the body. And she's like, I know. But I'm like, well, you gotta explain that to him and say, well, you tell us how we were supposed to do this. This is your teaching moment. Where I mean, you can get him to talk a little longer, and maybe whatever other assignment he wanted you to do, maybe tomorrow, you'll get butt up against the end of the day, and you won't have to do that assignment. You got to think of these things, get that discussion going, and then they get sidetracked, and like we do on here, maybe every once and again, and and she's done that before in science, but it's like you got to do that in English. But that's the last class of the day, so she's always like, I'm done. Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, I've told her it's easy to write when you've got a couple different adjectives you can toss in there that aren't the same things you hear all the time. You have to beef up that vernacular.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, I don't know. I can do that. If you can't, you haven't been listening to me for any amount of time. So
break out with the better nomenclature. Come on.
Yeah. That'll be a Christmas gift, a thesaurus. Like, there you go. Enjoy and indulge. Because that's... You don't have the English teachers we used to have with the vocab tests. And I had the one that was about 100 years old when I was in 9th grade. Then when I took her for 10th grade, for 9th grade English again. And then when I had her in 11th grade, for 11th grade English, vocab tests were key. Because that's where I learned all these fancy words. So I didn't sound like the way I look, like somebody that just crawled out from under a bridge panhandling for a Hot Pocket. So
you remembered that? I purged all that crap from memory.
That was the thing. You got it Monday. You got your 10 words, and then it was like, okay, once during the week, you'd spend like 10 minutes on them during class, and then at the end of the class, you'd take like a mock test. So that'd be like on a Wednesday, and then Friday morning that'd be our first thing we had to do was the vocab. So it wasn't just like car or automobile. I mean, these were alphabetical order of like tougher words, like the arduous. I remember that word from that class. So I took something from high school, which again doesn't look like I did much of, except lunches from everybody else. And then I've utilized it in my everyday life. So again, sidetracked on 9th grade English.
You need to have a vocabulary, a hobby vocabulary. You just have like a game show element to your podcast where you have to like make sentences using like guys who you collect, like Derek's car went in the water, but it had great lake speed, or even better, a hobby spelling bee. TJ Hushmanzada and all the crazy names, but that would be fun. A hobby spelling.
WHOZYOURMAMA. TJ Close enough.
You're not winning the Scripps Sports Spelling Bee, so
yeah.
Roethlisberger.
Darn.
Roethlisberger.
RAPEAHOOKER.
This is a
Right,
family
hooker.
show.
You should have known that was coming.
Yeah.
Come on.
Spell Vincent Damphous.
DAMPHOUSSE.
There
Yep.
you go.
Ay. Squirrel. In more ways than one. Come on, Dave.
So what else you do, Jeff? Are you? We have hockey going on, baseball playoffs. Sports is rocking. Halloween's coming up. It looks like.
Hello, C.
That's great.
Isn't it past your bedtime?
It's like Jerry Cheever's mask from back in the day,
Yeah.
or Gilles Breton.
Game used.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably thicker than the one he wore, though.
Oh, I'm sure. I got some parchment paper, tracing paper, and put some stitches on there. Okay, looks mean now.
I remember having a chat with Ken Dryden once, and I asked him about the original mask he wore, which was like a spider web of fiberglass.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying, like, there's Bobby Hull coming at him with this 120 mile an hour slap shot coming right at his face. And he said, I don't even know how I survived the NHL wearing that mask for the first couple of years I played. But everyone was upset when he went away from it because it was such a signature look.
Mm-hmm.
Then when he came back, he took 2 years off to study law. And then when he came back, it's like he had a more normal looking mask. And he said, yeah, the fans were so disappointed because they liked the other one, but I wanted to, save my face a little bit. So,
He wanted to live, so
yeah. I remember I went to an autograph signing once with Gump Worsley, who I think finished his career in Minnesota. But he was one of the last goalies to play without a mask. And he was doing the signing, and somebody asked him about playing without a mask, and he just looked up and he said, my face was the mask. And it's like,
yeah. And on him, you could tell.
yeah, he was leathered up, like he was he had taken a few pucks, but yeah, different era though,
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Even then, when you don't, again, now you got like composite, graphite, whatever for sticks, and you have everything. All the technology, even back then, was just a plain old wooden stick or whatever. It's like no way I'm sitting in goal, hoping somebody doesn't shoot from the blue line, and it's not like congested in front where I don't have a clear view of the puck. Even then, I wouldn't. I mean, it's just insane to think about that. Same with like the pitching in the 20s and the 30s, and for baseball, as you went on, I mean, yeah, you got the helmets. I think were more in the 50s and then 60s for sure. But it's even then people didn't want to wear it. It's like that. I don't want to sit up there against Bob Gibson without a helmet. What the hell?
You wonder how Giancarlo Stanton was able to come back from what he suffered, getting his face broken with a pitch, and just to be able to come back from that and have the nads to be able to step back into the box and face major league pitching. I mean, now every team's got 3 or 4 guys that can throw 100 now, and they're all coming from the same release tunnel, so you can't differentiate between 2-seam, 4-seam, and slider. And if you're a right-handed batter and you've got a right-handed pitcher coming up and in with a 4-seam fastball, it's like you can step into that really easy. And if it rides up, you're screwed. But there was a back when we released when I worked at Pinnacle in 97, 98, we resurrected Beehive. We wanted to make a product that was similar to Beehive Photos. And we launched it in Vancouver at the NHL Fan Fest. And it was kind of cool because Gary Bettman was there, and he kind of joined in the press conference and said a few words about the history of Beehive Photos and whatever. Somebody must have prepped him for it, because I don't imagine he knew much about it. Glenn Hall was around, and there were a lot of NHL legends, and Stan Mikita was. We had one autograph guest from each team, and Stan Mikita was our Chicago guest. But Bobby Hull and Glenn Hall, the goalie, happened to be there. And I was sitting with the three of them. And it was like, I mean, pinch myself if I'm 10-year-old me. Oh my God, I'm sitting there with three of them having a chat, and they're joking around laughing, and I'm just like a kid in a candy store. And they were telling me about how they invented the curved stick, and there was a partially broken stick that the blade kind of was disshaped, and Bobby Hull was trying to break the blade. So he was firing these slap shots, but they started dipping and curving and doing all kinds of crazy things. And he's like, Stan, come. They were the only two guys on the ice. They're like, come try this. So they're grabbing all the sticks and breaking them and bending them in the door, and then going out and like taking these crazy shots. So then they figured out that they could curve the sticks. So Glenn Hall at that point didn't wear a mask. So he's out there at practice facing these guys, shooting at him, and he hasn't got a clue where the puck's going. He was terrified. And Glenn Hall is saying, yeah, the sons of bitches. At that time, we didn't have plexiglass. It was a chain link fence behind the net, and there was a goal judge sitting right behind the net in a little booth, and looking through the chain link fence. And there was a little shelf on the edge of the boards. And he said the goal judge in Chicago would come in with a coffee and his newspaper, and he'd put his coffee there, and then he'd start reading the newspaper. And Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita had this ongoing bet that if anybody could knock the coffee off the ledge, the other one would have to buy him dinner. So this poor guy, you'd think he'd learn, puts his coffee down every game, and all of a sudden here comes a puck, coffee all over him. Oh, Jesus, and Glenn Hall's selling us this, and he's like, yeah, the thing is, you bastards, is that in order to hit the coffee, you had to whiz the puck right by my ear, and I wasn't wearing a mask, and I had no idea where it was going. And Glenn Hall was famous for, like, just before he went on the ice, before every game, sometimes every period, he ran to the bathroom and he threw up from his nerves. And he was coaching with the Calgary Flames. I was working at a Buffalo Sabres game. I was working it as a photographer, and I went into the Sabres locker room after the game, and Glenn Hall came over to see somebody that he knew in the Sabres, and then the Sabres had a Russian goalie. I mean, it was Hasek's backup, and he didn't get much playing time, but he was a real fan, and he came over. He was all excited to meet Glenn Hall. He'd heard all about him and read about him, and he's shaking his hand, and he's excited. He's a kid. He's like 20, 21, and he's like, oh, I've read all about you. You're in the Hall of Fame and blah, blah, blah. And he says, and I read about how you threw up before every game. I can't believe you would go on the ice after you threw up. And Glenn Hall looked at the kid and he said, I've seen you play. I can't believe you don't throw up before you go on the ice. and the whole room just like busted laughing. And he was often an autograph guest at the Expo. And he was in his 80s. He was known as Mr. Goalie, so he'd sign his autograph, Glenn Hall, Mr. Goalie, and quotation marks. A very, very clean, legible autograph, as everyone's was back in that day. Not the scribbled logo graffiti crap they sign now. And Glenn Hall's favorite line was, here you go. I'm going to be dead soon, so I guess this will be worth something on eBay someday for you. Like he'd always say something like that, and just a really fun class guy. But yeah, I'll never forget them telling that story about about whizzing the puck past Glenn Hall's face to hit to try to knock the guy's coffee over, and so yeah, it's funny the little things that you get to experience working in the hobby.
Hence the reason why we enjoy hearing all the stories.
There was one that happened, and it was the same year, maybe it was the next year. I was doing an interview with Gordie Howe. I was also kind of writing a column for ESPN.com at that time, just as a sort of a fun side thing. And so I was having breakfast with Gordie Howe at the hotel where everyone was staying at, and we're chatting. And all of a sudden, Reggie Jackson walks in and sits down with us. And I had met Reggie Jackson through the Upper Deck Company a few times, because Reggie Jackson was very heavily involved with Upper Deck. He was one of their baseball spokesmen, and he was at all their events. And you go to enough of them and you chat with them enough, he knows who you are and whatever. So Reggie Jackson looks at me and says, "Okay, if I join you guys?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to say no to Reggie Jackson, right? So Reggie Jackson and Gordie Howe have never met. And so they're introducing each other. "Oh, hi, Mr. Howe. I'm Reggie Jackson." "Oh, yes. Hi, Reggie. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm Gordon Howe." And they're shaking hands and they're talking. It's it's so hilarious listening to two famous people that you kind of know everything about, and they're chatting in a very informal way. But after a couple of exchanges, they got into some really deep stuff about, the grind over the years and preparing for big moments, and some really great stuff. And it was a lot of fun, but yeah, you accidentally happen to be in the middle of some of these situations, and it's just it's surreal. It's priceless, but it's just like you shake your head, and you never imagined, like, you couldn't get two more random people to put at the same table than that. So yeah, it was kind of fun.
Two guys that, if you put at a table, you'd be like, huh, I wonder what the hell they're going to talk about. But then you start thinking of the parallels of, you get away from like maybe skin color or the upbringing, whatever it is. And then you're like, well, Gordie Howe, pretty decent hockey player back in the day. Lots of titles, records. Reggie Jackson, pretty decent baseball player back in the day. A lot of big-time plays and big-time situations when you don't get nicknamed Mr. October when you're in the NBA. If you're in the NBA and you get nicknamed Mr. October, you're probably not very good.
Yeah.
So, you're like, well, let's see where this conversation goes, because, I mean, you can couple things in there, but it's like, that's something you want to listen to, because it's not something you ever really you think about. It's not like I want to hear Michael Jordan and Dale Earnhardt when he was alive. I want to hear them talk. Well, nobody's thinking about that. But again, it's parallels there, where it's titles, grit, determination, just always wanting to be the best. So yeah, that'd be something fun to Fanatics with them owning pretty much everything. That'd be something fun for them to try to come up with. Like, just have Sidney Crosby talk to Giannis Antetokounmpo or somebody like that, or LeBron James. Have those two just sit there and have like a chat. Get a 20-minute chat and record. Hey, come on now there, Vincenzo. Don't give me the rock people's eyebrow. I don't need to see that bullshit.
Fanatics can't even 2 of their 3 events they scheduled for the year. They already canceled 2 of them. So I saw that today, that they had one of their events that was scheduled for research department slow tonight. I just saw it. Canceled. Fanatics has canceled its upcoming show in Orlando. It's the second of 3 events. It has.
That's from the hurricane, though. You can't. Come on now.
Hey, it's from Sports Collectors Daily. I believe it.
I'm not stating that it's not factual, but like they just got hit with a hurricane.
I'm aware, but it's Sports Card Daily. I'm like Bob. If that's what they say, I'm listening.
So Sports Collectors Daily, I've got a story on there coming out tomorrow that I wanted to bring up because it's the 30th anniversary of the year the World Series and the playoffs were canceled. And of course, everybody talks about the Montreal Expos and how this was their year. They would have played either Cleveland or New York in the World Series probably. And the one thing nobody remembers is Tony Gwynn was chasing 400 that year. And he was getting really close. He was hitting 394 when the season was shut down, which I think is the closest since I think George Brett had a 390 and John Olerud was up around 400 for quite a while in the 93 season the year before. And it's funny. I interviewed JJ Cooper from he's the editor at Baseball America, and then Mike Kramer. I had him in on the story because Mike was had a baseball license by that point for Pacific, and Tony Gwynn was the Pacific baseball spokesman. And it's funny how we will probably never see a run at 400 again, based on analytics of where to position players defensively, the quality of the equipment and the gloves. AstroTurf is gone. The pitchers are now throwing consistently. You're facing someone throwing 98 to 102 every game with crazy spin. And the style of play has changed where the launch angles have changed and teams have figured out that they want somebody, if you're hitting 320, well, they'd rather see you hit 275 with more home runs. So guys like Wade, Boggs, and Ichiro both had crazy power during batting practice and could have won the home run derby any given year and could have been home run hitters, but they were singles and doubles hitters who used the whole field and went the other way. And that's what Tony Gwynn was. And would he even be allowed to hit the way he was? And if Tony Gwynn came around now and hit 350, would anyone even care? Because look at Luis Ariz. He's one of the greatest hitters we've ever seen, and year after year after year. And have you ever heard anybody talk about a PSA graded 10 Luis Ariz card? Like, never. And I don't even think they put him in insert sets. So it's like, but Tony Gwynn, like I was, working in the industry in the 90s, and Tony Gwynn was one of the, there was a core group of superstars, like Cal Ripken Jr., Frank Thomas, Larry Walker, Roger Clemens. There was a core group of guys. This was sort of before A-Rod and Jeter, and Tony Gwynn was in everything, and so was Wade Boggs, and now, what would Tony Gwynn's place in baseball be in 2024? Like, would anyone even care? And that's what's so interesting about how things have changed over 30 years. So,
yeah, you don't have somebody like Maddox that his fastball's topping out maybe 90, 91, but his his curve, his breaking ball, that stuff's at like 82, 84, and it's just painting that corner. Now, that's something you might not the command and the precision, but that's the speeds you're having at what? Maybe if you're like first year college, senior year in high school, maybe junior year, like 82, 84. I mean, even more. That's all. People just want to throw hard, and most of the time, it's not somebody that can actually control it. That's the problem. People want to see that 104, but Christ, if you're getting it under your chin or it's off your wrist, I mean, then you're done. Like Pasquantino for Kansas City, that was a huge loss for them, I think, in July. Getting it off the wrist or off the outside of the hand, that's it. Your season's done because nobody can fucking throw a strike. You can throw 100, but if you can't throw it over the plate, that doesn't do any good. And yeah, Matt Williams was at what, 46 home runs that year?
Yeah, he was tearing it up too.
So he was chasing Maris, which really hadn't been done other than what, McGuire in 87 when he had 49, and people are like, that's not that far off of Maris. So yeah, and it just sucked. That there was so much fun going on that year because the Indians were good. They finally, all those guys came up. They finally, all that collection of talent they'd been building. Expos had the same thing. Just young guys starting to really come into their prime with like Walker. It sucked when they that strike and like, fuck. The one year that the World Series is going to be just lights out amazing, and you've got all these records that are in jeopardy. Nope, sorry. Season's canceled.
And I remember I was in the hobby media at that point, and the players were so flippant about it. Ken Hill was the ace of the Expos staff that year, and you know, I'm the editor of Canadian Sports Card Collector magazine at this point. I was working freelance for Pinnacle, and you know, we of course are doing a story on this for our magazine, and Ken Hill is just talking about it being a business decision and whatever, and there's no regard from either side about the fans, about collectors, about the hobby, and it destroyed the sports card industry. I mean, sales went down 40% and they never came back up. People just moved on. And it's funny because Mike was telling me when we were talking about it that Pacific sales didn't go down. He said we did two products. They were both out at the beginning of the year, and they were both out before the strike happened. And then in '95, he said we produced to order. We didn't produce mass quantities. That's why they call it the junk wax era, because everybody overshot their quantities by 4,000 boxes to try to appease their investors. And you go to a show, any show, whether it's Canada, the US, East, West, national, or at a flea market, and you're going to see the same stuff from between 1990 or 1989 and 1994, and it's all mass produced. But when's the last time you saw a Pacific product being an unopened box of Pacific at a show? It's really hard to come by. Like it's just not out there. And there are other products that are just it's almost like Pro Set, for example. Did Lud Denny ever even turn the press off? Is it still running? Like you'd think it is. It's like somebody's going in and feeding cardboard sheets into it for the $3 boxes that they're selling. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting time. Mike did a Tony Gwynn chocolate bar too, and the Tony Gwynn base hit bar. I don't know if you guys had ever heard of that. And because he did a Ken Griffey Jr. chocolate bar in Seattle, and it was a big success. And the packaging machinery that Mike used, that was used in the trading card business. Nice. I can't believe you've got one. And wow. That's what I love about coming on with you guys. I'll mention something totally random, and within 15 seconds,
leave it to freaking Dave. I mean, seriously.
It's like you've got Barbara Eden going like that. And it just appears you. And so anyway, Mike was saying that Quest for the Cup, nice. And which you're bouncing it. I can't read it.
Yeah, come on. Vanguard?
That's a great design and great card stock on that set. Adrenaline was, I think that's the set where we had the Time Warp inserts, where we photoshopped like Guy Lafleur up against Ilya Kovalchuk, and we had like Bobby Hull coming in on Martin Brodeur, and there was an autograph and a memorabilia swatch on those cards, and that was a fun set. But anyway, getting back to the chocolate bar, Mike said that they didn't consider the fact how many of the chocolate bars would melt shipping them to San Diego through California. So it was like after the first shipment, it was like, oh crap, they had to get refrigerated trucks to ship the chocolate bars down, and that sort of made it not as viable financially, like not as lucrative to do that. So they only did it for 1 year, and he did a Wade Boggs chocolate bar too, and for the Boston market, I think it was called Wade Boggs 352 or something after one of his batting averages that won a title. But yeah, the Tony Gwynn, the really hardcore Tony Gwynn collectors, Tony Gwynn autographed a lot of those chocolate bars at shows and things. So you every now and then on eBay you see Tony Gwynn chocolate bars being auctioned off, and if you buy one through eBay, I hope they ship it so that it doesn't melt. I don't know how they would do that, but now which one's that? That's Frank Mahovlich and Martin Brodeur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look how crisp and clean Frank Mahovlich's autograph is.
Yeah, and you got space to work with, and guess what? You worked with it.
Yeah.
And then a nice little swatch on the old Brodeur.
You got a double color there.
So, and I like that. That's set for either 95 or 96 Collector's Edge football. I love that set for the time warp type situation where it was Dick Butkus sacking Brett Favre, or Walter Payton running over Seau, or whoever it was. I mean, it just was like something, again, you just don't think about. It's like, I'm not going to think about Marino getting tackled by Dick Lane or somebody like that. It's like, that's
Deacon
cool.
Jones.
That was inspired by ESPN used to have this special on every week, and it was amazing. It was like the best show they've ever done, and it was they set it up like a tournament, like a bracket, and it was a greatest teams of all time against each other. Like they'd have the 72 Dolphins against the 85 49ers, and they'd splice footage together to make it look like they were playing each other and have the commentary. And it was the most fantastic show. And they only ran it for 1 or 2 years, and then, it's disappeared into the archives. But that's I'm sure if you do a deep dive on YouTube, you'll find that, because that was just absolutely fantastic. And that was a kind of a mid-90s, maybe early to mid-90s thing that they did, which was really cool.
Yeah, President's Reserve, Dave. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's back still when Beckett did like Buy the Box.
Mm-hmm.
So that it would be a newer release, and they'd open a box, provide the details, number of packs, cards per box, percent of set, insert ratios, and this is what they would pull per box. Mm-hmm. And that actually inspired me to buy a box because of the whole Time Warp insert. And I pulled the Marino, and I think it's Deacon Jones. I still have it somewhere.
Yeah, I think the Butkus one is Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
It seems to me, because I'm trying to think of that was so cool what they did. Now here's the interesting thing: like Collector's Edge went into financial problems, and then Shop at Home bought them, and Upper Deck just before that ran into some financial problems, and they were both, not a lot of people know this, but they were both, from what I was told anyway, I mean, this isn't gospel, you know, this isn't New Testament worthy, but they were both movie related. Upper Deck spent a lot of money to get the trading card rights for a movie called Congo, which was about a massive gorilla, and it was supposed to be like the big budget blockbuster of the year, and it was. I mean, it was like when the producers did Springtime with Hitler in the Woody Allen play. It was just, or no, Mel Brooks play. I mean, or the movie, and then the other one was Collector's Edge. Spent a ton of money getting the license for Judge Dredd, and that was another one that was supposed to be like a mega huge hit, and they had the trading cards right for it, and paid a fortune for it, and then Judge Dredd was a bust also. So it's amazing when you can. It's amazing when you look at movies, and everyone in the industry became so gun shy about it. I remember at Pacific we got a call when they were doing Jerry Maguire, and there's a scene where Cuba Gooding Jr. is on the phone, and what they were pitching to us was him saying, "I only sign Pacific cards." And the thing is that this is like 2 years before the movie's out, and everybody was so, hey, are we going to spend $20,000 on to get our name mentioned in this movie? Well, what if it's Judge Dredd or Congo or something crazy like that? And so we were like, no, we stay away from it because it's too much of a roll of the dice, and it's you never know. And ironically, the very, very last product Pacific made was Garfield, the movie, and we got a call from Garfield from their marketing company, saying that they'd like to do a trading card set with their movie, and they knew we had a really strong retail distribution outlet because this wasn't a hobby product. This was a retail point of purchase product. And they offered us a deal where it was like no money up front, no minimum royalty guarantee. It was just a straight produce the cards, pay the royalties. There was no crazy upfront investment that we would have to make. So it made a lot of sense for us to do that. The product was quite successful. And Jim Davis signed autographs, and the actors and the actresses in the movie signed. So that was that was a kind of a fun project to work on. They're in Muncie, Indiana. The people that did Garfield and their whole complex up there. So Rob Hicks, who actually works for Fanatics now, he was the head of our graphics department and our design team. He and I went up to Indiana for a couple of days and spent our days at the Garfield complex, kind of working on this project. And it was a really fun thing to do.
Something different too, because it's not sports related, so but still card related nonetheless.
Yeah, and Pacific did a lot of like if you go back to the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, Pacific did a lot of TV show cards and did very well with them. Like they did I Love Lucy and Saved by the Bell and Gunsmoke, and they did quite a few sets of cards for that kind of stuff. And because they had the retail channels that the other card companies didn't have, they did quite well.
And now all that stuff is huge money. The Star Wars, and then Star Trek, and then Walking Dead. I'm trying to think what else. I know there's a ton more, but I mean, now you have pretty much
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's the one. As I say, I know there's another one in that genre. It just that Rittenhouse or whatever they've whatever they've done, they seem to have done it right. I think there would have been a market back then, but at the same time, you just don't know because you're so into the moment of the show. If you would have had something with like All in the Family, the Brady Bunch, if you would have been able to pull something from back then, maybe in the early 90s, because again, then you have like a Nick at Night running some of those replays or whatever. Then I think then it's like, okay, you got the folks that are from that time frame that would have loved an auto, some of those cast members, and then now you have younger folks watching it, learning about the show for the first time, buying into it, and like, man, this would be cool if we had some autos of Mike Brady and Florence Henderson and all the folks of that ilk. And just weird how the market pops when you're like, Game of Thrones, the show's great, but cards will never sell. Then 2-3 years later, after the first couple iterations come out, they just take off and blow up. So the hobby, you can predict the future. You better give out lottery numbers too. That's something you better be certain to do. One day something will be the bee's knees, and the next week it'll be something people are shaking their head. Why was it created? So,
and most of the times something's created, it doesn't sell worth a crap, and then 2 or 3 years later, it suddenly takes on a life of its own.
Yeah,
and that happened at Pacific when we did TNA wrestling. TNA wrestling was a kind of a, it did okay.
yeah.
And then once, probably, I don't know who all of a sudden everybody went after. It might have been AJ Styles. I'm not sure, but all of a sudden everyone just went nuts for this set, and it was like it just started skyrocketing in value, and it was crazy. One of the things I did at Collector's Edge is I worked for months on a proposal for us to do Harry Potter cards. And this would have been in like 1990, when I think the first book had been out and the second book was just coming out, and they were talking about doing a movie. And that was a very we were dealing with Warner Brothers for that, and it was just, they were so demanding, and I don't even know if they ever even got a card set off the ground. I think they wanted to make it some sort of interactive game element, sort of like Pokemon or whatever. And we pitched a Quidditch game at them, and they weren't interested in it. And I thought it was a pretty good idea, but again, you're just trying to like get a piece of that franchise because you just saw that it was snowballing, and you wanted to get in on it, and it was just you couldn't have done it any earlier, because at that point it would have been another Judge Dredd thing. You're gambling on something you know nothing about, and I mean, it's a book, it's a series of books. Who reads books? Like thank God for the Harry Potter series, because they saved that whole generation from being illiterate. Like that's the generation that stopped going to the library and stopped reading books. Well, then Harry Potter came out and everybody became like avid readers again. The Twilight series did that after that too. So, yeah. So we going to talk some hockey here or what?
I guess we can.
I don't know. I'm just here to talk about what you guys want. So
we're always. I just like that conversation because there's something I know. Probably I speak for Vinny and Steve that we haven't heard anything amongst our hobby rumblings about anything from that time frame about Congo and Judge Dredd shitting the bed card wise. Because again, that's just I knew theatrically they did, because I remember the Judge Dredd previews and the promos coming on the TV, and being like, even as a younger male, I'm like, this is not something that looks too exciting to me.
I am the law.
Yeah.
I went to see it in the drive-in with my aunt and my two brothers. We saw Judge Dredd and man, I can't think of what the other movie was. But it was our first time. My aunt wanted this. She's like, "You've never been to the drive-in?" And I'm like, "No." And so she took us to the drive-in.
Steel Magnolias? Was that the other one?
What?
Was the other one Steel Magnolias?
No, it was the life story of John Cougar Mellencamp.
Okay.
Oh, Lord God, man.
And did you say to your aunt, are the movies at drive-ins always this bad?
No, I actually enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah. It's a fun experience.
And it still sits there to this day. I took my daughter to it. We went to see some Disney flick. I can't remember what it was. But we saw 2 movies and she was out till like midnight. So she was in her glory.
And Steve pulls the random card out of his ass. That's great. One year at the National, Deacon Jones was there representing Topps. And it was around 1995. And Topps had like back at the Nationals back then, each company would have there was a legitimate hobby media. Each company had hobby media personnel, and they would have these kind of press conferences to roll out their products for the upcoming year or whatever. And Topps had Deacon Jones there to talk about their football lineup, their football products, and he talked about football. And of course, there was me, some guys from Krause, some guys from Tough Stuff. I think there were 1 or 2 guys from Beckett there. There were, whoever worked in the hobby magazines were there. And it was kind of cool because at that time I was still playing semi-pro football. And I was a kicker and punter, and Deacon Jones was telling me about how the very last play that he did in the NFL is they let him go out and kick an extra point because he loved kicking, and he was fascinated by kicking, and he always wanted to be a kicker. And he went back through the game films and counted how many sacks that he had, because he was that wasn't a stat when he played, but he was the guy that invented the quarterback sack. And he was just a fascinating guy to talk to, but a lot of fun. But again, one of these guys you meet and it's like he's just a regular guy, he just happened to be a really good pass rusher, but just a regular guy, and he loved representing Topps, and he loved talking about football cards, and he remembered all the cards of him when he was younger, but yeah, that was kind of a fun thing. But I couldn't imagine being, I mean, you talk about the Rams defensive line from that era, the Minnesota Vikings front 4 from that era. I mean, Alan Page, like those are bad dudes, and they head slapped in that era too. Like they that was legal, and I shook hands with Deacon Jones, and I may as well. It was like shaking hands with a Prince tennis racket. I mean, the guy's hand was like this. It's like if you stick your hand on top of a pizza. Like that was the sort of the ratio of my hand versus his hand. And but it was really cool. He was an amazing guy, and I think he's passed on now. But God bless him. He was a lot of fun.
No, Jeff, it's not very often that Dave talks about something and I'm actually the one who's able to pull something out of my ass. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Usually it's Dave and Vinny who pull something out of their ass.
I did.
So happen, which you did, but hey, I seized the opportunity that you brought up and was able to miraculously.
That was brilliant. That was like Christopher Walken pulling a watch out of his ass and presenting it to 10-year-old Butch in Pulp Fiction.
So all 3 of us have pulled something out of our ass this evening. That's a first. Anyways.
So hockey. What are you looking at this year? Is there any sleeper like Ukko-Pekka Laitinen?
Well, I know that last year I had this brilliant idea that I was going to run through every team and one player from each team, and that had to be probably the worst show in the history of IRP.
No.
I think that probably, if anybody had insomnia, they probably would just kind of replay that, and I would rather masturbate with a cheese grater than watch that episode back. So I wanted to come up with something a little bit different, but I did want to come up with some breakthrough players to talk about, not necessarily rookies, because the young guns that come out in Series 1 Upper Deck, we're gonna have some really good players in that set. I mean, I know everybody's all like squishy over Macklin Celebrini going in the second series, but there's so many other guys that kind of got a call up at the end of last season that are going to be in Series 1 this year, and that's the beauty of the young guns thing. Like I try to get the young gun set collected, finished every year, and then like now there's guys from 21, 22 young guns that are just ready to explode.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people, and I mean the hobbies patience level is so small. Like even look at week 2 in the NFL this year. Everybody was ready to move on from Bo Nix and from everybody that it wasn't Jaden Daniels. So it's you really got to kind of let guys have a little bit of time and breathing room, especially in hockey. Like it's like baseball. You draft guys when they're 18 years old, and then unless they're superstars, they're not going to make the NHL. They're going to go to college for a year or two. They're going to go back to junior. They might spend a year in the AHL. They're going to develop in season before they're ready, because usually an 18-year-old is not physically ready, mentally ready, emotionally ready, skill-wise ready. You're going into an 82-game season. So it's very rare that you get an 18-year-old that can just jump in. It rarely happens. And that's the thing. Everybody gets fired up about the draft, all the fans. Well, hey, great, that's our first-round pick. Well, we're not going to see him for 3 or 4 years. So, don't get too excited. But there are some guys that are going to be on the radar. I took notes this year, so I didn't have to, I
keep doing this because I don't want anybody to buy it. I want to say Series 1 sucks. Series 2 is going to suck. Celebrini's horrible. Hank the product.
Okay, so the first guy that I want to talk about is sort of on the radar. I just gotta look at my notes here, and this is the guy I think is going to be like a super stud this year, and I'm just wasting time until I find the page that he's on. Okay. Upper Deck second series 22-23, card number 497. The Utah Hockey Club doesn't have a name, so I have some inside information, and I'm calling them the Ice Polygamists, the Utah Ice Polygamists. I don't know if that'll stick, but that's my suggestion. They'll have like a giant guy, like they have mascots that are actual like giant people. They'll have like the Sister Wives guy maybe.
That's who I was thinking of. Cody.
Dylan Gunther.
Okay. Yep.
And it's funny. I was doing kind of work in the summer on okay, who are the breakout guys going to be, and he was like number 1 with an up arrow on the chart, and he spent last year, the first half of the season in the AHL, and he got the final 23 games. He had 23 points in his call up. And that's a kid. And this guy is 21. He's dynamic offensively. He's going to get first line time. He's going to get power play time. The offense is going to be built around him. And I would say you can't. Okay, he's got 5 goals in 4 games. He's leading the league in goal scoring. That's just sort of a hot streak. But 35 or 40 goals is not out of the question for this guy. And this guy's going to be the franchise player when Utah, when they officially become the ice polygamists. This guy, again, everybody knew he was good. He was a pretty high draft pick, but in 2022, 2023, Upper Deck Series 2, everybody's chasing Connor Bedard. So Dylan Guenther was kind of an afterthought. Oh yeah, he's a pretty good player too, but I mean, watch this guy because he's like a mega stud. So that's one guy I wanted to mention. I wanted to talk about while we're in that division, Cole Perfetti from the Winnipeg Jets. He's in last year's Upper Deck 2, has card number 466, and he was a draft pick of the Winnipeg Jets. And he's another guy that's bumping up his playing time, going to get a power play goal. Now, in his last year in junior with Saginaw, he had 111 points in 61 games. And he had 19 goals and 12 assists last year. He didn't play a full season. But watch him this year. He's going to become one of the he's going to be the franchise player in the future for Winnipeg for sure. And this is going to be likely his breakout year. So if you go back to if you did collect last year's Upper Deck Series 2, there's stuff in Young Guns beyond Connor Bedard, and Cole Perfetti is one from the Jets is a big one. Last week I got to see. I've seen 5 NHL games live so far this year, and I got to see Montreal and Ottawa play. And there's a goalie for Montreal who this guy is going to be. He's going to be and goalies are very collectible, and I think he's going to be the breakout star among all the NHL goalies because there are a couple of goalies that are due to break out this year. Where'd that page go? Look how disorganized I am. This is painful for you guys. I'm shuffling notes all over the place like I'm an absent-minded professor.
Well, at least you've got notes. That's the thing. We struggle. We'll sit and go down a path, and then we get to like the end of the path, and we're just like looking in the clouds, like, what the hell are we doing down here? I was supposed to go to the grocery store. Why am I in the fucking woods? So, yeah. Par for the course, and anytime you're taking notes and you're giving us information, Jeff, do not worry. I like the shuffling of papers. I like that.
Sort of Jim Romish, right?
Research and development department. You got
yeah. It's like when you listen to Jim Rome, he's always got the paper shuffling.
Well, yeah, that's bang on the table.
I should talk like this. I should talk like Jim Rome. Clones. Here are some cards to look after. So anyway, Sam Montembeault is for the first time he's got the net to himself in Montreal. And the first game of the season, I saw him play preseason. The last preseason game, Montreal was in Ottawa, and I was at the game. And this guy was lights out fantastic. And he's 27. He's just coming into his prime because goalies develop a little bit later. And first game of the season, he shuts out the Toronto Maple Leafs 1-0 and gets 48 saves. The next game, it's against Ottawa again, and they win 4-1, and he gives up 1 goal on like 30 shots. And this guy was just absolutely unbelievable. He was a Florida draft pick back in. Well, he's in the 2018-19 Upper Deck his Young Guns card is in Series 1 from 1819. He's with the Panthers then. And the Panthers actually, because they had a crowded crease with Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, they had to put him on waivers to send him down to the AHL, and Montreal claimed him. And he's from Bécancour, Quebec, which is about halfway between Montreal and Quebec City, a little town on the St. Lawrence River. So anytime, Montreal is a different market, because if you're a French Canadian goalie, you're like a demigod in that province. And to be a French Canadian goalie for the Montreal Canadiens, you think of José Théodore, you think of Patrick Roy, you think of Jacques Plante. Sam Montembeault is right now probably one of the best goalies in the NHL. I know we're only a week or two into the season, but this guy is like playing phenomenal hockey. He's been improving and improving and improving. And, it's his first year. He was even Jake Allen's backup. And last year, the Canadiens, if you remember, they had 3 goalies on their roster all season. It was like a 3-headed monster, because they had Jake Allen still. He's gone. They had Montembeault, and then they had Caden Primo, who's a young goalie that they would have had to put on waivers to send him down to the AHL, and they would have lost him. So they wanted to keep both he and Montembeault, and they had Allen there that they couldn't move his contract. They tried to trade him at the trade deadline. So now Allen's gone. Montembeault is the full-on starter. This is going to be his first year, and he is probably going to play his way into the starting position of the Canadian Olympic team. He'll go from being, a guy on waivers a couple of years ago and a guy nobody really knows about, to being sort of the next guy. It's Stuart Skinner from Edmonton is the other goalie everybody's kind of talking about for Team Canada. Stuart Skinner's not off to a good start in Edmonton, but Montembeault looks incredible. So we'll see what happens at this Four Nations Cup they're doing in February. And then, because that's kind of a tune-up for the next Winter Olympics. And I wouldn't be surprised if Montembeault is a big deal by that time. Will he be as good as Carey Price? Who knows? Because the guy's never had a shot, but what he's done so far this year is just a phenomenal piece of work. So he's one guy from Montreal. Cole Caulfield was already a star. Remember when 21-22 Upper Deck Series 1 came out? There we go. Cole Caulfield. He was number 201. Like, he was the guy that they were showcasing, because Cole Caulfield had a great collegiate career, and then signed with the Canadiens and played a couple games at the end of the season, which made him eligible for the 21-22 Young Gun set. And Caulfield fell to like 15th in the draft because he's like 5'8", 170. He's a little thicker and sturdier than that now, but he's not a big dude. But neither was Marcel Dion back in the day. Neither was Theron Fleury. Neither was Cliff Ronning. I sometimes size is a little bit overrated. But he played his college hockey at Wisconsin, put up big numbers. He's one of the most prolific scorers in the U.S. The U.S. national team for 17 and 18 from their development program. He's probably the most prolific offensive player they've ever had in that program. And he's already had a couple of good seasons, but this year is the year he's going to be superstar this year. So watch, his cards came out, and then they got kind of, every card there's excitement about it, and then they kind of get overshadowed by somebody else. I mean, everybody got overshadowed by Connor Bedard, but Cole Caulfield is a fan favorite in Montreal, and watch for him to take off. And also in Montreal, this is the year that Juraj Slafkovsky is gonna bust out. He's in the 2022-23 Upper Deck Young Guns Series 2 set. He's card number 451. And remember in the 22 draft, he was picked first overall by Montreal. Everybody thought Shane Wright was going to be picked first by Montreal. Shane Wright played his junior hockey with Kingston. And all of a sudden, everybody knew Slafkovsky was good, but Montreal surprised everybody by picking him first. Now the kid is like, 6'3". He's probably playing at about 210, 215. He looks phenomenal. And in the first year and a half that he played, like his rookie year, he's playing as an 18-year-old. He got 10 points in 39 games. And not very much. Last year, he played a full season. He had 20 goals and 30 assists, 50 points. Not a bad year. But when you think of what he did in the last 40 games of the season, like the second half, he had 16 of his 20 goals were in the second half, 19 of his 30 assists were in the second half. So he turned it on after the All-Star break. His points per game after the All-Star break was 0.88 points per game. Now here's the other thing that's really you've got to think about. He's 3 years younger than Cole Caulfield. He's only 20 years old. Slafkovsky. It feels like he's been around forever. And he's 20 years old. So this guy, Caulfield and Slafkovsky together with Montembeault and net, they've got a couple of a great young defensemen that are coming up. They've got a really good team they're building, and I think they're going to be really good a lot quicker than everybody thinks. And when you talk about it's funny because there's this big controversy in New York with the Rangers with their goalie. He turned down an $88 million contract, and Igor Shesterkin, and it's like, oh, that's way too much money to pay for a goalie or whatever. The goalie you're the backbone of the team. Like Carey Price carried a really crappy Montreal Canadiens team all the way to the finals. They were knocking off everybody, and it was just because they had a good goalie. Think back to when Minnesota took out the Montreal Canadiens back in 1980 and ended their dynasty. Gilles Meloche stood on his head. You still see Gilles Meloche jerseys more than 40 years later, and a goalie can do that. Ottawa had Craig Anderson that could steal. He carried Ottawa to the 2017 semifinals. They lost in Game 7 double OT to Pittsburgh. After Craig Anderson left Ottawa, it was a gong show in net until they finally got Linus Ullmark this year. So why not? If you've got the best goalie in the world, pay him, for God's sakes. You cannot go anywhere in the playoffs without an elite goalie, and so that's one of them. Toronto, since we're talking about them playing the first game of the year, they've got a guy, you'd probably remember him, Dave, from college. He played at Minnesota, put up big numbers. Matthew Nyes, and he's ready to totally rip it up. He was in Series 2 Young Guns last year, again, card number 22, overshadowed by Connor. Or sorry, he was in Series 1. A lot of people kind of didn't get excited about Series 1 because it's like, oh well, we're going to wait for Series 2 because Bedard. A lot of people turned away from Series 1, but we've talked about Dustin Wolf on the show before. We've talked about Devin Levi from the Canadian, or from Buffalo, the Montreal kid, the goalie. He's in that set also. He's got a bright future ahead of him. And Matthew Nyes of the Leafs, he's and the thing that's interesting about him, he's like Austin Matthews. He grew up in Phoenix, so you talk about the impact that moving, putting an NHL team in that market. Well, Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes are both first line guys on the Leafs. They're line mates, and they're both going to have big years and big careers. And would they even ever have played hockey if the Arizona Coyotes never existed? So now it's up to, Arizona State has a phenomenal college hockey program. How much can they keep interest in the state going? Phoenix will probably get another AHL team. They had the Roadrunners for years. They were in the WHA, and so we'll see how that goes. The thing with Nyes, Montembeault, Slafkovsky, we're talking about guys from Montreal and Toronto, and they are easily the two biggest hockey card markets in the world. They have the largest fan bases. I would put Detroit as the number 3 hockey card market. When I worked at Pinnacle and Pacific, Detroit was like much bigger of a market than any other market in the U.S. And the Red Wings too were phenomenally good at that point, and the Red Wings are on their way to being really good again. So, but you know, those are two of the most heavily collected teams. They're the most heavily followed teams, and you've got young stars on both teams, and people collect both of those teams pretty solidly. So, so staying in that division, two guys in Ottawa that I wanted to talk about. First is Josh Norris. And I don't know if you can call him a breakthrough guy. He got 35 goals a couple of years ago, but then he's been hurt ever since. And, you know, he's had 2 shoulder surgeries. I think actually his last one was his third. Vladimir Tarasenko had 3 shoulder surgeries and then was fine after that and led St. Louis to a Stanley Cup. So hopefully Norris, it's the same thing. He sat out most of last year. He was one of the guys that Ottawa picked up in the Erik Karlsson trade, but he's looked really good in the off season, or in the preseason, in the regular season. Ottawa and the Kings played yesterday afternoon. I was at the game, and Norris scored the overtime winner. It was 8-7 the final. It was like watching 80s fire wagon hockey. But Josh Norris, he's in the 2021 Young Gun set. He's card number 209. And even though he was drafted by San Jose, he's an Ottawa Senator in that set. The other one in Ottawa that's really looking good, like he's going to be a superstar, is Shane Pinto. He's from he grew up in the shadows of the Nassau Coliseum where the New York Islanders play, but he's in the 21-22 Upper Deck Young Gun set. He's card number 246. Now he had 20 goals in an 82 game season 2 years ago on a really bad team with not a lot of support. And then last year he was suspended for half the year for a gambling violation.
Yep.
Which was he did not gamble directly, but there was, I don't know whether he told somebody, hey, you should pick these guys, or I don't know how it went down. They never really did release the full information on that, but he was suspended for 41 games, came back last year, and he had 27 points in 41 games. And then this year in preseason, he just took off, and he's off to a really hot start this year. And, you know, when you look at the young players offensively that Ottawa has, they've got Brady Tkachuk, they've got Tim Stützle, they've got Norris, they've got Ridley Gregg is coming up, they've got, you know, they went and traded for David Perron. They've got a lot of depth, and now Norris, Drake Batherson, another guy, like he's been amazing the last couple of years. Alex Formanton, do you remember him? Alex Formanton is working construction now and has officially retired from hockey. He's one of the guys in the lawsuit, the Team Canada Junior sexual assault thing. And so he will likely never, well, he's retired. He won't play again. And the thing that's interesting about that, we talk about who's going to be the goalie for Team Canada. It probably would have been Carter Hart from the Flyers. He'll probably never play in the NHL again either, because he's also involved in that lawsuit. So, you know, if you invested money in their PSA 10 rookie cards, I mean, put them on the shelf with your Wander Franco cards, because I don't think they're gonna. I have a PSA 9 first tops now Wander Franco card that I don't really know what to do with that one.
Put it inside your Puff Daddy CD and then throw it down the St. Lawrence River. Say, you know what? There we go.
Now, speaking of that, so when I worked at Pinnacle, it was right when we were starting to put autographs in packs, and you know, like if the cards come out, okay, we got to get some autographs, and Charles Woodson was he was the guy from Michigan, the two-way player, right? I just want to make sure I got that right. Yeah, played wide receiver and DB, but he played DB in the NFL. Well, we got an autograph deal with him, and usually we have to go through the agents. And I didn't get to be on the phone call, but Lori Goldberg, who was our vice president of communications, she made the deal. And Charles Woodson, we had to go to his marketing agent for his autograph deals, who was Puff Daddy. And he was still Puff Daddy. I don't think he was P. Diddy yet. Or Sean Combs, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was like, so Lori, like, what was it like talking to him? And she's dealt with celebrities for years. So it's like, oh yeah, he was okay. You know, he was a good guy, whatever. What did you call him? Did you call him like P or Puff or Puffy or Puffster or Diddy or like what did you call him? And she said, well, I asked what to call him, and he just said, just call me Sean. So that was that was, you know, we're used to dealing with these like high-end agents for autograph deals, and all of a sudden there's Puff Daddy representing Charles Woodson, which was completely unheard of at that time for like a rapper to be representing anybody. So it was kind of funny you bring that name up. It just sort of triggered a memory. Those things happen. I saw something from Paul there. Yeah, Mitchkoff with his first goal. So with the Flyers, like he's the guy everybody's watching. I mean, he's going to be a hot rookie when his Young Guns cards come out. Another guy to look for in the second series, and another guy that was able to. Another guy who was able to make the NHL in his draft year, because you don't see a lot of that. But here's a guy from his team, from the Flyers, that isn't getting the attention Mitchkoff's getting, but a guy that I really like. He was in Series 1 last year, 23-24. Tyler Forster. He's card number 225 last year. And when you look back at last season, I mean, he's a guy not a lot of people, unless you're a Flyers fan, he's under the radar. Not a lot of people have heard of this guy. Tyler Forster, from January 12th on, Tyler Forster was the Philadelphia Flyers leading scorer as a rookie last year. And nobody, I don't think anybody would ever guess that. And John Tortorella, the Flyers coach, loves him because he's gritty. He plays two ways. He plays a full 200 feet. And he's a great player, but he does the dirty work in the corners. He's going to be a top 6 player and get power play time throughout this whole season. And I would say if there's anybody on the Flyers who's a breakthrough guy, I'm not going to count Mitchkoff as a breakthrough guy because he's a rookie. I mean, he's a Calder candidate for sure. But Mitchkoff is the guy everybody's watching, but Tyler Forster is the guy. If you're really paying attention to the Flyers, he's a guy to watch. So, is Vinny still there? I see his little head because I want to talk about the Penguins.
I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll wait till you come back before I talk about the Penguins.
Old man kidneys.
Buffalo Sabres have. I want to talk about Buffalo and Columbus. Buffalo Sabres have a kid here from Ottawa named Jack Gwyn, and he played his junior hockey with the Ottawa 67s. Not a lot of guys get to play junior hockey in their hometown, so that was kind of exciting. And Jack Gwyn is a very, very dynamic forward. Again, doesn't get a lot of attention because of some of the other guys, but if you look at some of the, what do you call them, the secondary stats, or the deeper dives in the NHL comp stats. So he was 5th in the NHL in 5-on-5 points for 60 minutes, like 5th in the whole league. So Jack Gwyn, now he had 2 big injuries last year that kind of bookended his season, but the 27 games that he did play when he was healthy, he put up some decent numbers. And the one thing that following the Sabres and seeing what they're doing, like he's a big part of that team. He's a key player in the power play. He changes. He's one of those guys that when he's on the ice, the game changes a little bit. Like some guys have the ability to get on the ice and just, everything seems to sort of revolve around them. And Jack Gwyn is one of those guys. And when I was at the game the other day, I was at the LA Kings game yesterday, and I was sitting with I spent a lot of time yesterday with Randy Robitaille, who's an agent for both Jack Gwyn and Brandt Clark from the Kings, who we're going to talk about in a little bit too. And Jack Gwyn's progression, and with some of the young stars he's got beside him, Buffalo, again, has been a long time since the Sabres have been in the playoffs, but Buffalo's ready to make a serious run. They've got great goaltending, they've got fantastic defensemen, and they've got a young forward group. Like, they can not only make the playoffs, but they can do damage in the playoffs and go deep. So and Jack Gwyn is going to be a huge part of their success. So look for him as a breakout guy this year. And we'll talk about since we just mentioned him, Brandt Clark from the Kings. Now, Clark is from an area of Ottawa called Barhaven, where it's a suburb that I lived for about 10 or 12 years before I moved to where I'm living now. And I ran the local community newspaper there. So we've been covering Brandt Clark since he was like 10 years old, playing in the Bell Capital Cup. Like he was that good that early. And his brother Graham Clark plays in the New Jersey Devils system. Graham's a little bit older. He's a forward. And last year was kind of cool. Both of them got called up from the AHL to the NHL on the same day in different cities for different games. It was just a coincidence that two brothers get called up on the same day in Graham's NHL debut, and the parents are like, "Which game do we go to?" There's a game in New Jersey and a game in LA. Like what do we do? But Brandt Clark, if you remember the World Juniors when Connor Bedard sort of put Team Canada on his back and led Canada to the victory, Brandt Clark was the kind of offensive defenseman that was Bedard's running mate in that series. Now he played at the World Juniors, went back to Barrie, and played for the Barrie Colts. Finished out his junior career, and I got to see him play junior a couple times, and it was like the only time the Ontario Hockey League has ever seen a defenseman put up the kind of numbers that Brandt Clark did. Was a kid named Bobby Orr that played for the Oshawa Generals, and then another kid named Brian Fogarty, who was one of the most prolific offensive defensemen ever in junior hockey. Didn't have much of an NHL career. Well, I wouldn't say that. It wasn't what everybody was expecting him. He played for the Niagara Falls Flyers. Brandt Clark came back to junior and had, as a defenseman, 61 points in 31 games. So he's at like a Mario Lemieux scoring level. And he's a defenseman playing junior hockey. So he made it up to the NHL. Played, most of the guys come up and they play 8 or 9 games. They don't want to burn their year, and then they get sent down to the AHL. So he played for the Ontario Reign. He's up this year, kind of playing in a full-time role. He's 22 years old now. The game against Ottawa yesterday was kind of cool because he grew up going to games in that stadium, cheering for Erik Karlsson. He played in that tournament. There's a big tournament. The world's largest youth hockey tournament is called the Bell Capital Cup, and the finals for each division are all played at Canadian Tire Center. So the last time he was on the ice at Canadian Tire Center was to play in the Bell Capital Cup when he was 12, and he gets to play his first game at the Canadian Tire Center, the rink he grew up. He went to the World Juniors there in 2008 when he was a little boy. He went to see all kinds of Sens games. He gets to play there. His family's at the game. He got 3 assists yesterday and actually scored a goal that was called off for goaltender interference. So he was 3rd star of the game. So he was pretty pumped with how that went. But this guy is he patterns his game after Drew Doughty. He's cut from the same cloth. Defenseman, he's in 2022-23, Upper Deck 2, card number 470. So again, he's another Series 2 guy. And so this because we're seeing now defensemen starting to become collectible now, and I think that it started with Cale Makar in Colorado. I mean, there always have been a couple of defensemen. Nicholas Lidstrom was collectible, and you know, through the years you get you know, Ray Bork was always collectible. Paul Coffey was always collectible. There have been a few guys, but most of the time the defensemen aren't really the ones that, you know, collectors are going after the goal scorers and the goalies and the all-stars. But now we're starting to see these defensemen that are so dynamic come through. And here's Brant Clark, who has the potential to become what Cale Makar was. Like he could legitimately become a 60, 70, even 80-point guy in the NHL as time goes on, and he could become a superstar. So he's a guy, again, you know, you look at who's in Series 2 beyond Connor Bedard last year. So Vinny's back from his hiatus. Here's the guy I like on the Penguins this year to have a breakthrough year. It's Cody Glass, and I don't know if you've seen him play yet or if you've watched him play yet. He played for Nashville last year. The Penguins picked him up. Now he was drafted 6 or 7 years ago. I think in 2017. He was a high pick. He was a top 10 pick, and he's in 1920 Upper Deck Series 1. So you got to go back a little ways. He's card number 237. You've got to kind of find him a little bit, but when he was a junior, he played for the Portland Winterhawks, and he was well over a point a game. He had 94 points in 69 games 1 year. In his last year of junior, I think it was the COVID shortened year, maybe. He only played 38 games. He had 69 points in 38 games. So he's got an offensive touch, and he's a big kid. He's like about 6'2", 210, I think. He's a big winger, and he's physical, and he's one of these guys that Kyle Dubas is the GM in Pittsburgh now, and Mike Sullivan and Dubas really liked this guy, and they were like, we've got to sign him. He's available. And he's kind of a guy that has been in a couple of different situations, most recently Nashville, and he didn't quite fit in. But they want to pair him with Kevin Hayes on the other wing, and maybe I don't know who the center on that line is eventually going to be, but he wants to have a big physical offensive line, an offensive scoring line that can do some damage. And I think Cody Glass is going to be a perfect fit in there. So again, he's 2019-20 Upper Deck Series 1. He's card number 237. If you're a Penguins collector, I think the guy in the bottom right might be a Penguins collector. So he might be he's probably looking for the card. He's probably already got it right now. He's probably, when I started talking about it, you sent it to PSA and it's already back. But it's like Coyote used to like go to Acme Grading and put it in the mailbox, and then it was there 5 seconds later. It was something like that. There was a comment, somebody, and for you guys listening, we can't. There it is. It was Paul that did it. Did we cover the Oilers? Well, we're only looking at kind of breakthrough guys, and I don't really know. If, like, Evan Bouchard was kind of the breakthrough guy in the playoffs last year. I don't know if you could consider him a breakthrough guy, but he's, and then last year the big breakthrough star was oh my God, I just brain farted. I can't think of his name. The forward that scored 50 goals, Zach Hyman, but the one guy. And is there room for guys? I mean, Ty Emberson, the defenseman, is probably the best bet as a breakthrough, but is he going to be a collectible guy? I don't know. He's probably going to play with Darnell Nurse. So we'll have to see how that goes. But the whole future of the Oilers season, I think, is going to be resting on if their goaltending can come through, because early in the season it hasn't been, and in years past it hasn't been either.
No.
Dave, I know you're a Minnesota guy. Marco Rossi, I think this is his year. He's another guy that I watched a lot in junior. He's in the 2022-23 Upper Deck Series 1 Young Gun set. And he was, a lot of people don't remember because Bedard overshadowed everybody, but he was second among rookies with 21 goals last year. And Rossi's looking to really up his game this year. So I would expect a big year from him. He's a good player, and he was a dominant guy in junior. And the one thing is he never, we always look at guys when they're playing junior hockey. We watch the World Juniors, and Marco Rossi's from Austria, so it's not like it's not like he's going to get to play in the World Juniors and go deep. So nobody would really get to see him there, because Austria, not known for producing NHL players, but again, you're seeing more talent come from different European countries.
I'm 10% Austrian. Does that count? But I never made the NHL.
Did you go to? Did you get? What is it called? You send your DNA in, and they you send
23 with me or whatever.
No, I just have a detailed record of all the family back about 7 generations.
Nice.
And no one's getting my DNA unless it's my child, other than parenting a offspring.
Schnitzel at Vinny's house for all of us at Christmas Eve.
We'll have some wiener schnitzel.
Exactly.
I'm more Croatian than anything, so we'll have some roasted lamb.
And drink some Slivovich. Is that what it's called? Slivovich? What's their? There's a Croatian liqueur that's really popular, but you'll have to
Blankovic?
up and go to the specialty liquor store to find that one.
I know what you're talking about. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Talked about Shane Wright earlier. He was the guy that for years it was projected to be like he was going to be a franchise player. Seattle picked him, and it seems like it was a long time ago. I mean, he's in the 22-23 Series 2 Upper Deck set. Before this season, Shane Wright had only played 16 NHL games. Like for a guy that's kind of been on the peripheries for quite a while. Anyway, this is the year that he should have his breakthrough. I mean, he had a really good year in the AHL last year. He was in the Calder Cup playoffs. He was point a game. I think he's ready, and I mean, Seattle needs him to be the player that they wanted to get. He's not going to be a franchise player, I don't think, but they put a lot of faith in him, and I think that he's going to evolve as he's not going to be Matty Beniers. I mean, he's going to be the franchise player there, but I think definitely Shane Wright's going to be right up there with him. Now, here's a guy that's interesting too, that when I was researching this, Pavel Dorofeyev of the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't know much about this guy other than what I've kind of read about and researched. But here's an interesting guy. He's in Series 2 of 21-22 Upper Deck. His Young Guns card is 496, and at the beginning of the season, they had him penciled in to play on the Knight's second line with his line mates being Mark Stone and William Karlsson. So if you are in an opportunity to really be in a perfect position to succeed, that's it. He's got a great shot, and he's strong. He's highly skilled. He's a pass first guy, but he's got a great shot. So in that Vegas system, he's in a position where he can succeed and put some big numbers up. And there's one more guy I'm going to talk about. Hopefully I haven't bored you guys to death yet. Oh no, wait. I didn't talk about Columbus because Adam Fantilli is he was the number 3 pick in 2023. And Adam Fantilli, he played at Michigan and played 36 games as a freshman, 30 goals, 35 assists, 65 points for the Wolverines in 36 games. I mean, those are sick numbers. And he was considered in the 23 draft the most NHL ready out of everybody, even more so than Bedard. He missed. He had 27 points in 49 games, which is a pretty good pace for a rookie. He got injured. He was already the second line center, but he was. It was kind of a freak thing. He got kicked in the calf and had a lacerated calf injury and missed the rest of the season. So he's healthy again. Columbus has a lot of good young talent. If they can get the goaltending from Elvis Merzlikins, if I said his name right, I can never say his name right. They should be good. Fantilli's going to probably play with James Van Riemsdyk, JVR, just call him, and Yegor Chinnikov, who's a really good Russian player. That should be a really good line for them. But Adam Fantilli is a really, really dynamic offensive player. So watch out for him. And where's Dallas? This is the guy I think is going to win the Calder Trophy. Save him for last. Maverick Bork from the Dallas Stars. When you look at the young stars Dallas has, they had Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, Thomas Harley. This Maverick Bork played his junior hockey at Shawinigan and was close to a 2-point per game player. He's going to be definitely in the top 9, maybe in the top 6. In preseason, he was centering Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven, which is a phenomenal line. If any of the players that are sort of the young breakthrough guys are in a position to succeed, more than anybody, it's Maverick Bork because he's a gifted center and he's on a very good team and he's going to have great power play time. He's going to have strong playing time. He's going to have great line mates. Now, he does not have a card yet. He is going to be in Series 1 in 24-25. So his rookie card, Young Guns card, will be coming out second week in November at the Expo when Upper Deck Series 1 is released. So, and if you want my prediction for the Stanley Cup Finals.
I thought Series 1 came out tomorrow.
Does it come out tomorrow? I thought it released at the Expo.
I thought it released on the 16th.
Oh, did it? Okay. I'm wrong then.
Update releases tomorrow.
There's
You're not confused.
They're releasing a set from 2022-23 that just came out. Like they're 2 years behind. On
Ice. Was it Ice?
Ice is the 16th. You're right.
Yeah.
My bad. See, that's why he's the hockey oracle.
No.
Yeah. I got it written on my piece of paper here.
I know Topps Update. I know Topps Update releases tomorrow.
And it's Rekia and Slilovitz.
Yeah, Blink.
I was close. Slilovitz?
Slivovitz.
Yeah.
Slits?
No, it's not Slits. Slivovitz. But
Go Stars.
We'll have to check it. We'll have to go upstairs. I'm going to throw the challenge flag, and we'll check the replay on that because I think that's what I said, but I don't know if I pronounced it right. But
Yeah, you were close enough.
Go Stars.
That's actually the brand name.
4-0. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
So anyway, my prediction for the finals is Dallas and the Rangers. That's what I'm going with. But
Rangers are tough.
I don't know if I mean you've got to go through Bobrovsky to beat Florida, and Florida's really good, but will they be really good in May? And I think the Rangers are built for May, and you know, you talk about Jeff says UD Series 1 comes out tomorrow, so is that the 16th?
Yeah.
It is.
See,
Yeah,
I had me doubt myself, Oracle. It's 11/16, I think, is ice.
Usually Upper Deck Series 1 is released at the Expo, so I was just assuming it was, but to come out a little bit earlier.
I don't know where my paper went. I got too much paper. My office is a mess.
So anyway,
Go Dallas.
yeah,
4-0.
I think they're gonna make a run. I think Colorado is I don't think Colorado's got the goaltending right now to go that deep. You need to have two solid guys. I don't think Boston is quite what they were last year.
No.
I don't think Vegas is what they were. Nashville is going to be sneaky good because they've added some players, and they've got Stamkos now. But yeah, it's going to be a good year though, and I think you're going to see a lot of new. I think you're going to see a bit of a changing of the guard, and it's going to be led by a lot of these young players.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh's rough. I was really disappointed when they got rid of what was his name? Braden. It was that trade with
Winnipeg.
Yeah. I wanted that kid to do so well, and it's sort of like Martin Letestu when he was with Pittsburgh. Malkin and Phil made him look like a genius on the ice, and he was just poised. Then he went to Columbus and just went through.
Yeah,
and, I was at Braden Yeager. I was hoping. I always remembered by Ray Stantz from Ghostbusters. Hey, Dean Yeager. So Brandon Yeager. Anyhow, I was really hoping that was going to be my next Penguin because I had Malkin, and then it's been Rust after Malkin, and I was hoping for somebody, but I don't get them now. So I've been collecting Rust a little bit more heavy than I did before. So he doesn't have a young gun.
you never had a young gun.
Just has a Future Watch auto or a Future Watch. His is not an auto.
Yeah.
Future Watch. So I gotta track that down eventually. But I have like my side PCs. Guys like that, Sagan. That's kind of guys I'm into. Malkin and Stamkos, Brock Besser,
Point.
Tyler
20.
Bertuzzi, nephew Tyler.
22-23 ice was just recently released, which is what Jeff was talking about earlier.
Oh, okay. 22-23 ice.
Yes.
I wrote a story about that product a couple of weeks ago in sportscollectorsdaily.com, and it's amazing that a product is coming out and it doesn't have a Connor Bedard rookie card in it because it's from the year before, and those cards, because it's a 21-22 delayed or 22-23 delayed release, it'll still be considered rookie cards from that year. And So I guess Slavkovsky would be the big guy in that set. But
Yeah, I thought it was a misprint early on until you said something, Jeff, because I saw it. I was like, what? How? Huh? Wait a minute.
I'm
Pretty
looking
sure it's
forward
the
to-
it's the 23-24 year, now 24-25. Like, I'm confused.
it was Upper Deck had a shortage of material that they weren't able to get for the production, and I don't know what caused the shortage. I mean, I've heard rumblings that it was. Do you remember when all those ships were stuck in the canal?
Yeah.
Partially that, partially COVID, partially a lot of things shut down when Russia invaded Ukraine and it stopped production of certain things. There's all kinds of theories that have been floated out there, and I don't even know if anybody at Upper Deck has been told the real truth as far as what goes on, because I know when we ran into problems like that when I was at Pinnacle or Pacific or Collector's Edge or whatever, you would get all kinds of different explanations and reasons and stories when things were late. But I'm glad they're at least coming through with the product, and it's kind of interesting for collectors too, because it's like now you have a pretty good grasp of who all the rookies in the set are, and you know exactly what you're getting. If somebody's a bust or considered a bust already, you already know that going into the product. It's less of a crapshoot when you try to get the rookies. Imagine if there was a late 2022 NFL product coming out. You'd have a pretty good handle on who the quarterbacks to collect and who the wide receivers and running backs to collect would be from that year.
Yeah. There wouldn't be much speculation.
So speaking of NFL, Dave, what kind of interest is there in Minnesota in Sam Darnold cards right now? Is he sort of the darling of the hobby in Minnesota, and are people kind of believing in him?
I think with him, and then you've got his sort of checkered past on the field, it's a cautious optimism. Like, they're not going to buy into everything right out of the gate, but they're going to, if you can find the deals online, maybe in person you can flip them. I think that's going to happen, but I've heard a few people say, why don't they just sign him to an extension right now and then trade JJ McCarthy? And I'm like, you do not get how this works. I mean, you've got, 5 possible years with JJ McCarthy if you exercise that 5th-year option. And that, I think, and again, I don't know complete numbers, but it's got to be, for all 5 of his years, would be cheaper than if Darnold signed like a Baker Mayfield type deal, like that 35 million a year. And you don't have the baggage of Sam Darnold being at these other spots. Again, so far, so better than average. Because that game against the Jets wasn't exactly a beauty pageant. I don't expect him to all be, but at the same time, he's got to be a good game manager and not do his revert to some of his old tactics. And again, I think if he continues to win, even if you lose like a 28-24, 24-20, something like that, where you're productive in the loss,
Mhm.
I think the Vikings fans will still buy into it, because that's Minnesota fans. As long as you're doing something to show that you have some sort of skill. And okay, you lose, maybe receiver trips the ball, maybe running back bumps it. Maybe it's not the quarterback's fault. They'll still like support you. And once you start throwing the interceptions, it won't be as bad as Cleveland is right now, but it's gonna be pretty bad. Or if Darnold starts regressing to his old ways. But right now, they're loving him. People are excited for him, and again, that's good. I guess it makes it fun for me because then I get to hear people start like murmuring and mumbling about the Super Bowl, and I start chuckling because I say, "When's the last time you guys have been to the Super Bowl?" I'll sit down and wait. I mean, my Chargers went there once. Again, they got destroyed, but at least they've been there since I've been alive. So, the Vikings, on the other hand, last time I don't know if it was Joe Cap or Fran Tarkenton in the 70s, but does anybody remember Gary Anderson and then Jamal Anderson and Dan Reeves and a NFC Championship platform on the Metrodome floor and Dan Reeves doing the Dirty Bird? I mean, does anybody remember that? I do. Because again, I'd like to see that team go to the Super Bowl because Randy Moss, I think everybody here, no matter if you're a Vikings fan or not, you enjoyed the way he played. It was just something freakish about him because that's his nickname. But it just, hearing Vikings fans get so worked up. Oh, it's 3-0. Oh, we're 4-0. It's like, is the season ending next week? I mean, tell me, because I can't remember. The NFL season's only 5 games this year, or what? I just, I'm having one of those proverbial brain farts. And, well, no, but I'm like, just pump your brakes. You could have another Justin Jefferson injury. Darnold went out. I think one play against Houston, Daniil Hunter rolled up on his leg. I'm like, one play like that, you're down to Nick Mullins.
Look at Aiden Hutchinson against Dallas last week, in a meaningless play in a meaningless situation, and he Joe Theismann's himself. And so it's like, how's that going to affect the Lions? I mean, like, he's a key guy for them, but I don't know. I think it was always unfair to both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold that they were considered busts so quickly, because I don't think either of them were ever busts. I just don't think they were in the right situation and given the right opportunity. And Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have been drafted 2nd or 3rd overall, whatever he was. And he was very good at USC. And I think that he's finally getting the shot that he's in the right situation. But you look at a lot of these guys, and the expectation level, and it's as much the hobby as it is football fans. The expectation level is that, okay, you're the hot rookie we're all going for. You better throw 4 touchdowns and 300 yards a game now, or I'm not going to be able to sell my super fractor serial number to 10 that's PSA 10 for $30,000. So I mean, that's the way people think about it. But you've got to give these guys some time, and then you get guys that sort of are hot early and then fade away, and then all of a sudden they're hot again. And what's gonna happen if Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh suddenly goes off and has like a monster year with the Steelers? Are people going to all of a sudden? I mean, he won a Super Bowl, so he's a stud. He shit the bed when he was in Denver. So did his collectability go down? Is it going to go up? Is it going to be like a roller coaster? I mean, who knows? We're entering some kind of strange territories in there where you can't call somebody. If anybody thought Sam Darnold was a bust, I think that was premature. Same with Baker Mayfield, because those guys they're from the same draft, but they've both had good, it just took a while. And I mean, I remember talking to Tim Couch once, and Tim Couch he's very openly talks about it and said, I wish I would have been able to just sit on the sideline and learn for a year. I wasn't ready to go in. And he set a record for the most times being sacked in a season because their offensive line was that bad. And the fans are like, well, he's our number one star quarterback. We want him to be Jim Plunkett right away, and it's like, that's not going to happen. And his career was, it was still a decent career. And if people kind of looked back at it, well, you know what, he did pretty well. And he wasn't the only guy. Like there were some other guys that kind of came up and were considered busts, but when you look at sort of what they did over the body of work of the career, it was pretty good. Tim Couch's interesting story is that he went to Kentucky. Not a lot of NFL quarterbacks from Kentucky, but he actually went to Kentucky to play basketball. He was recruited by Rick Pitino to play basketball, and then was can I play football too? And went there as a two-sport athlete because Kentucky gave him the opportunity to play two sports. But Tim Couch averaged like 36 points a game as a senior in high school as a two guard. And he actually, when he was in eighth grade, not ninth, eighth grade, he started on varsity in basketball. He was that good. And he went to Kentucky, and he was fully on the path to go to the NBA, and then all of a sudden, his last year of high school, he put up monster numbers as a quarterback. He said he didn't even like football; like he just played it because all of his friends were, and it was something to do and whatever. But his mind was on basketball. But then once he got really good at football and started to get into it, he developed a love for it. But it's kind of something we don't realize how good of athletes these guys are. And when you look at that 99 draft, and I remember being at the rookie premiere that year, Tim Couch, considered a bust. I don't think he was. I think he put up. I think he was in a bad situation and he got hurt. I don't think he was a bust. Donovan McNabb had a good career. Achilles Smith couldn't even make it with the Calgary Stampeders. He was QB3 in Calgary, but he won a Grey Cup ring. But his kid is actually a blue chip prospect right now. I think he plays at Oregon, Achilles Smith Jr. And Oregon's ranked. I'm not following college football that closely, but I think Oregon is like in the top 5. They're number 2 now, right?
Yep.
And then you go down. I think Cade McNown was in that draft, picked pretty high. Joe Germain, I think, was picked pretty high.
Dante.
Who was the guy from UCLA in that draft? Was that McNown?
Yep.
Because there was one other.
Dante Culpepper up there.
Dante Culpepper, I'm getting to him because Dante Culpepper, I keep hearing and reading about him being a bust, and there's no way Dante Culpepper was a bust. He was a great quarterback that had a bad knee injury. That's like calling Joe Namath a bust. But Dante Culpepper was like, he was one of the most freakish athletes I've ever seen in my life. And a wonderful, wonderful guy. People ask me sometimes, who's the best, nicest athlete you've ever met when you were working in the sports card industry? Hands down, Dante Culpepper. What an absolute wonderful person. And it was really funny. Again, this is one of those holy crap moments. But we're all staying at the same hotel at the rookie premiere. And I'm literally sitting at the bar at night having a Diet Coke and a bowl of cornflakes. I was hungry, but I didn't want to eat anything like heavy, greasy or whatever. And I knew they had breakfast there. And I said, is it possible just to get a bowl of cornflakes? And they're like, yeah. And they're looking at me like I'm weird. But you know what? You got a craving, you got a craving. So Dante Culpepper and Javon Curse come and sit with me. And we're talking. And I'm looking at them. And Dante Culpepper is like way bigger than Javon Curse. And I'm saying to them, I can't believe you're the quarterback and you're the defensive end. Like this makes no sense. And Javon Curse was, and we got talking about other sports and two-sport athletes and things like that. And and I'm always fascinated by that because when I played, I was a two-sport athlete, and Javon Curse, his agent, made him stop playing basketball because he hit his head on the rim and got a concussion. And it's like, I could dunk a volleyball, like I never had that problem. But and Javon Curse was drafted or Dante Culpepper was drafted by the Yankees. He was Mr. Basketball and Mr. Baseball in the state of Florida. He won the state powerlifting championship in high school. But the guy just did everything, and he was good at everything. And it's amazing that you can that these guys, just whatever they decide to do, they're just phenomenal at it. And I'm sure if you sat them down and said, okay, we're going to play cornhole in the backyard, these guys would figure out how to be the best in the world at it. Like everything they do, they're incredible. And so yeah, that was kind of a fun thing. But when you look at if he never would have had that injury, I mean, the Vikings had decent core, like Randall Cunningham had. A lot of people don't remember how good he was in that era with Minnesota in the late '90s. He was like Hall of Fame-ish. Brad Johnson is a seriously underrated quarterback in the NFL. Robert Smith is a seriously underrated running back. There's a guy at his prime quit the NFL to go to medical school, and just that was his life path. He made enough money and he just wanted to go be a doctor. Like, good for him. But yeah, it was, when I look at that Vikings team with the Gary Anderson missed field goal team, and it's a shame Gary Anderson is remembered for that, because that guy was absolutely incredible. And that was hands down the best team in the NFL, like not even close. Denver won the Super Bowl that year, but Minnesota was the best team in the league, and probably that was the best Vikings team of all time. Like with Carter and Moss, and with the team they had, they were amazing. And John Randall, I think, was on that team, and the defensive end. Like they were just stacked. And yeah, it was a good team, and now they're 5-0 to start. I'm sure everybody's talking about that, but I hope Sam Darnold gets the respect there, and because he's really you kind of thought in the off season he signed there, and you know what, he's going into a really good situation for what he has as a skill set, the situation he's been in, where he is now. I think he was in a position to succeed, and I'm glad he has. And same with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, because Baker Mayfield was never bad in Cleveland. He was a decent quarterback there, and I don't know why he got the rap of being a bust. He was a very good quarterback. He was never a bad quarterback, and now he's a very good quarterback. So yeah, it's just a funny thing.
So Baker led him to the playoff victory against Pittsburgh, I think, the one year, and then they lost. I don't know if it was Baltimore or somebody else, but it's like, it's not like Cleveland's had it since the reboot of the Browns. They've had such a storied history of playoff games or even getting there. So be happy he's there, but it's just that wrath of your top pick. You have to show me within a year, 2 years at the least, or at the most, you better be on the trajectory to being a Hall of Famer, which it's completely unfair to the player. Just because, again, you can't, you're not the GM, you can't control personnel moves, and if somebody gets hurt, how are you going to replace this guy? You got somebody, if you're a quarterback and your left tackle, okay, we got somebody out of Alabama in the first round, that's our cornerstone of Joe Thomas, somebody like that in Wisconsin, and now they get hurt, and now you got somebody out of like Alcorn State or some Division II college. It's like there's a drop off, and you can't replicate the blocking that you're used to. So things change, and fans just don't care, and a lot aren't knowledgeable enough to fucking put that into context where Okay, center's out, left tackle's out, running back's out, 2-3 people on defense are out. It's like you're not gonna. This isn't Madden where you can stack a lineup and a roster. Well, okay, now my backup, I've got Reggie White as my DN. Well, now I've got Robert Porcher as a DN too, and then, well, I can put Levon Kirkland out there. It's like you can't put 3 All-Pros in real life as your like depth chart. It just doesn't work. So, and then the ineptitude you see one time. Okay, this team all of a sudden goes off with their rookie quarterback. Well, they had pieces in place. A lot of these other teams don't, and it's just like, well, why isn't our team winning? It just logic is a lost art and a lost ability for many people, and it submarines so many careers because you don't come into it with like, hey, Steve McNair played the last game of his rookie year. He started that, and then you saw what he did. So again, you see a lot of these courts that showing. I'm watching it's a 95 game, San Fran against Buffalo, and so they're showing Atlanta, the Saints. They're showing Jeff George. That was another one. A good college career, but he's so hyped up, and he has a terrible attitude or perceived attitude. It's like not only is like the hype behind you going to submarine your career, you yourself will submarine. So, but yeah, Baker and Darnold, they didn't, and the expectations are just so goddamn high right out of the gate. It's like you're not, just because you're the number 1 pick doesn't mean you're going to win a title. Go back in history. DeMarcus Russell, that's the only one you need to sit there and say, like, a number 1 pick looked the part, but just between the ears was not the part, and so I hope they have success. I don't sit there like even Zach Wilson for Denver. I mean, you got shit on the Jets. It's like, no, we want to let him sit out, and by like the 5th game of his rookie year, you're putting him in. It's like you're not gonna. That's a no-win situation. You're gonna be in that same boat 2 years later, picking top 5 because you're pushing these guys expecting the world when you should be expecting them to know like how to get from the parking lot to the locker room. That's what you need to be expecting, and that's just the win now or your disposable entity.
It's really amazing to look at this year's quarterbacks to see how many rookie quarterbacks are not only playing but playing well. And I mean, everybody struggled in week 1.
Yeah.
But when you look at what they're doing, it's remarkable. Like when we think of the year of the quarterback and go back. I mean, everybody talks about 83, the 83 class with Elway and Marino, but then after that, it's like okay, Kenny O'Brien with the Jets had a decent career.
Yeah.
But they're I think Jeff Hostetler might have been in that group, or there was somebody from Penn State in that group. Todd Blackledge was in there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. So there's not really much beyond Elway and Marino there. But when you look at this year's group, say what you want about Bo Nix in Denver. I mean, he's off to a slow start. He's kind of got Tim Tebow-ish numbers, but he's led the team to a couple of victories. He's going to be good, and then you've got the guys that Jaden Daniels not only could be rookie of the year, he could make an argument for MVP right now, and he's already that good. You've got some guys that are really doing well, and I think this year is going to be sort of when you look at for the next 10, 15 years, this is the year everybody's going to go back to and think of the year of the quarterback. And one thing I was thinking about, Dave, too, that's really interesting is the hobby is so micro focused on quarterbacks right now for collecting. And I don't know whether that began with did it begin with Tom Brady? Was it before that? I don't think it was before that, because when I was thinking of collecting when I was younger and collecting, working in the industry, and even like, I think Brady and Kurt Warner kind of changed the playing field a bit, but back in the 90s, there's Barry Sanders. Walter Payton was always collectible. You had
Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith. You had so many great running backs. Marshall Faulk was extremely collectible. There were a ton of guys. Great tailbacks. Marcus Allen was highly collectible. Like there was, name a franchise, and there's a marquee running back. If not on every one, at least on every second one. And even when you think back to like I have an autograph on the wall, a Jim Brown autograph, and I was thinking of how, when you think of, when you look at auctions and things that are going on, you see from that era, you see Jim Brown PSA graded cards. Well, they were a great dynasty. Does anybody ever sell or buy Frank Ryan autograph or Frank Ryan PSA 10s? Because that was the quarterback through most of Jim Brown's career. And nobody remembers Frank Ryan. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in that era, but it was all Jim Brown. And when you think of, okay, Green Bay as Bart Starr, but you think of Jim Taylor, you think of Paul Hornung, you think of the great running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Minnesota, you think of I'm trying to think of who their big tailback was. He was a big, powerful guy in the early 70s. That was so good, and my mind's not. I'm not pulling it out of thin air right now, but there were always these great running backs, and in Denver there was Terrell Davis. There was like every team and franchise seemed to have that going for them, and there were more people collected than just quarterbacks. There were some collectible. Dick Butkus was collectible. Ray Nitschke was collectible. Mike Singletary, Junior Seau, some of those guys, and now it's just quarterbacks, and which is kind of a shame, and but yeah, and does it matter when you have some of these other guys, like the wide receiver for the Giants, for example, like he's a phenomenal rookie. You look at Jamar Chase, and like you've got so many dynamic wide receivers. Like Randy Moss was a superstar, but is anybody looking at these guys as other than marginal collectibles, other than the quarterbacks right now?
Yeah. And I know the pendulum, it didn't completely swing, but I want to say like one of the first years of that would have been the 99, because a lot of that focus was on the ones we mentioned. And then Sean King later in the year for Tampa Bay started heating up and moving them towards like the prominent position. 2000, you had Pennington, Carmazzi. You had Kurt Warner from the year before, not drafted, but again, somebody that was white hot with that Rams team. Trying to think who else in 2000. Chris Redmond. Trying to look at like the SPX 2000.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, Dave, because Pennington was like the number one guy.
And again, you had Courtney Brown, number one. You had Arrington, Jamal Lewis was up there, Sean Alexander. You had more again, Plaxico Burress,
Mike Anderson,
Ron Dane. Ron Dane was in that group.
Ron Dane. I mean, you had a lot of variety. It wasn't just like quarterback. 01, you had Vic, but you also had Tomlinson.
Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of like solid pieces there.
Steve Smith.
02 was Julius Pepper, and that's it.
Well,
Yeah, Derek Carr or David Carr, but 03, Leftwich and Palmer.
Palmer.
Those were the two main. But then 04, Eli, Rivers, Roethlisberger. And that's where I think it sort of went from like everybody to like, okay, now we're at a middle part, like that pendulum's in the middle, and sort of shading over to quarterbacks because you could see the value there. Yes, there was the Larry Fitzgeralds and players of that ilk, but it's like now you start to see, okay, Terrell Davis gets hurt. You see, like, okay, flash in the pan, like Olandis Gary. Mike Anderson was like great for the 1.5 to 2 years, and you're starting to see like the people at the time, which weren't many, like I'll pool my money into Eli Manning because that seems like again, you look at, then you go back and then Brady's white hot. Warner sort of tapered off, but you still had successes going, and when you started seeing like what's the best long term, I'd say, investment at the time, it's like you look at a Marino, you look at Elway, you look at Favre, you look at the main quarterbacks for the teams that are always Aikman, Steve Young. If you don't have the injuries, you're looking at those big quarterbacks as your core pieces. I don't think like until Mariota that year, like the 15, then, but you still had like 16. It was Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott was the big rookie in 16. Dak was there, but it wasn't like he was the catalyst. Everybody was on Zeke, and then 17. I think 18 would have been like the first year of like really like that pendulum really ramping the other way with like, was it Josh Allen and Lamar? I think that was the Baker class. I don't know if he's 18. He must have been 18. Whatever year it was, it's like that 18 class was the ones that really people, I think, started looking more so towards the quarterback side of the pool. Like that's where we gotta do our damage, and then Mahomes starts to start more for Kansas City, and they start coming up, and it's like, okay, he's 17, but then you basically lump him in that like 18 type of class of big starters. So
a lot of it too might be because like the running backs now have a shorter career, shorter shelf life, and a lot of teams go running back by committee. Like they get fresh bodies in and out of there, and you know, think of Todd Gurley was supposed to be a superstar, got hurt. Saquon Barkley, it's kind of the closest thing to a franchise tailback that's come out in a while. Bijan Robinson maybe right now, but
Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, and other than that, it's like, you know, go back to certain years. Chuck Foreman was the guy I was trying to think of from Minnesota. Like
that's who I was thinking, but I didn't want to say it and be wrong.
It just wasn't coming into my mind. It's like I could picture him, but you know, you had, I mean, even in that era, you know, Turdell Middleton, Lydell Mitchell, like you had all these backs that were guys that they all carried the ball 20 times a game, and they were all good. Every team had a stud running back, and now it's like, you know,
it's all because it's a passing league. But what's interesting is it doesn't carry over to the receivers, really.
No, not at all.
When it comes to a collectability.
No, it like doesn't, and it's a passing league situationally. When a team gets up by 2 touchdowns, they run the ball and run out the clock. Like who's the running back for the Chargers? Is it S.K. Dobbins? What's his name?
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, like I was watching the Chargers Broncos game, and that guy's phenomenal. And you know, you never see him in auctions or anything like that, but that's what the league needs more of, because once a team gets a league, they're going under center, abandoning the RPO, and they're gonna drive the ball the length of the field and choose 7 or 8 minutes in a drive. That's how you win football games. And I don't, and there's not games always that are close enough that you're going to see that RPO all game. So.
No, and you're not going to see like the Jamal Anderson, Terrell Davis, the Earl Campbell, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Emmett Smith stat line of like Derrick Henry's about the closest you'll get now.
Yeah,
like a 35 carries, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, maybe a couple catches sprinkled in. But you just, like you said, it's like a line change for hockey now with the running backs. You're not utilizing, a lot of teams don't utilize the fullback, which again, back 25, 35, 45 years ago, that was a key. That was your battering. That's the guy that's taking on that middle backer. And now very few use check for the Niners is a fullback, and he'll block, but he's a lot more of a receiver, sort of a like wide check when he came in. He's more of an H-back, and just you can line him up at a tight end. You can line him up wide. You can line him up like in a shotgun formation right off the hip of the quarterback. And he can do all this stuff. This isn't your traditional Larry Centers receiving fullback or a Lorenzo Neal. You put him in front of the running back or the tailback, and he'll block for him, but he can also catch 70 balls, and guess what? He's 5'10", 270, and he still can catch that. You just don't have that anymore.
I think the last really collectible fullback we had is Mike Allstott.
Yep.
When Tampa had Mike Allstott and Warwick Dunn as their running backs, that two-headed monster backfield. I mean, every team before had, fullback tailback combo that was so good, and teams got away from that. And it was Kansas City, like when Mahomes was pretty early in his career, Kansas City was sort of the first team to go to the college RPO. Yep. And everyone said, oh, that offense won't work in the NFL. It would be like, 10 years earlier trying to run the wishbone. And I mean, it's a basic offense. It's like the wishbone. You leave the end open. That's your first read. And then you have, you read there, you read the inside receiver coming down, and then you read the wide out who's usually got a hitch or something. I mean, everybody does it a little bit differently, but I mean, it's just a progression of reads. And if these guys in college are taught that and play that system, why not do it in the NFL and adapt it so that it will work? And that's what Kansas City did so well, and then once it worked for them, everybody's doing it, and it's basically every team from age 12 players up is running that now. But another, like, when I look back at the best two, I was lucky enough to go to a lot of games at field level, mostly as a photographer, but for different reasons, for different games. But the best two running backs, actually, I'll say three. The best 3 running backs that I've ever seen live, and I'll say 3 because I want to add Eddie George to that group. Eddie George was just absolutely phenomenal, and I saw Emmett Smith live, but I think Eddie George, the best Eddie George was better, I think, than the best Emmett Smith. Emmett Smith had a better career; he was more productive. But if you've got to tackle one of those guys one-on-one in the open field, you're not tackling Eddie George. You're not tackling either of them, but I mean, you're not going to have to go to the hospital if you try to tackle Emmett Smith, probably. But I'll never forget watching Herschel Walker live, and I'll never forget watching Ricky Williams live. And Ricky Williams is another guy. I mean, he was in that 99 draft class. A lot of people thought he should have gone number 1 overall. And I mean, all of this stuff, if you ever watch a Football Life on the NFL Network, they did a really, really good special on Ricky Williams and just on his career and everything. But a lot of people forget that, like, that guy had 10,000 career yards. and it's like, is that a bust? 10,000 career yards? I mean, yeah, he left and he had mental health issues and whatever. I mean, it would have been handled a lot differently now than it was then. But he was just a guy that needed to get away from what he was going through. No different than Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders, I remember at Collector's Edge, we had all of these cards printed on a pallet, Barry Sanders, and they were stamped NFL all-time rushing leader. And we were just waiting for that moment, because the second he broke that record, they were going to be for sale on Shop at Home. And there's just these pallets of cards that ended up getting destroyed, and you know, we're ready to go with them, and then all of a sudden Barry Sanders just pulls the plug on his career and retires. So yeah, that's an interesting comment there. Barry Sanders played in Dallas. He would have had more yards than Emmitt Smith, probably. I mean, Barry Sanders was, and when you look at, again, you look at the running backs and who the quarterbacks are. Detroit had a pretty good team at that time, but does anybody collect Eric Hipple or like, who are his other quarterbacks in that time? Like that's the one I think.
Scott Mitchell was the one that came. Eric Kramer.
Scott Mitchell was on. Scott, remember that show, The Biggest Loser, with all the like fat guys trying to lose weight? Scott Mitchell was on that show. He weighed like 350 or something, and trying to turn his life around. And you know, who were Walter Payton's quarterbacks? And I mean, go back before Jim McMahon. You know, Bob Avellini maybe, or like who were the?
Yeah, you had nothing. You just had nothing.
And that's the thing. The running backs were the marquee guys, and I don't think there's. I mean, Derrick Henry's not the marquee guy in Baltimore because Lamar Jackson's there, but there is not an NFL team where the running back is the marquee guy, and I think the hobby misses that. Like I think you need to have a resurgence in the running game and start to see that more and more, and I don't know if we will, but it would be nice to see, you know, another Eric Dickerson come along, or another Terrell Anderson come along, or another, you know, another Derrick Henry, or another Ricky Williams, or another big, powerful, hard to bring down. I mean, you're never going to get another Earl Campbell. That was just a freak show. I mean, I love watching the films of him. Billy Sims, the same thing. Billy Sims was a great running back before Barry Sanders, and Thurman Thomas even had a great career in Buffalo, but you just don't see those guys anymore, and they're too few. I mean, but if you're a coach, would you rather have three running backs you can put in and out? You know, Tony Dorsett had a you know, they had a third down. They'd take him out on third down and put Preston Pearson in and run him out of the backfield as a receiver. But yeah, you don't see that anymore.
Nope, and I don't think you will.
No.
Passing league, it's much more entertaining for the fans. It's higher scoring games.
You know what though? A draw play or a trap that's a 20-yard run is pretty freaking exciting.
Oh,
everybody gets jacked for something like that. It's when it's just like a 2 or 3 yard inside run. And it's different. The blocking is different now. You don't see as many twists and traps inside. You're seeing a lot of zone blocking. And with the zone blocking, the way it works is you know, you're blocking left, you're blocking right, you're going to the outside shoulder, and the running back just sort of finds a seam. And you know, I think we left out Alvin Kamara. He's a great back too. And Alvin Kamara, I think, is pretty collectible because he scores a lot.
Yeah, but it's the gap is so wide though when it comes to quarterbacks versus receivers and running backs. It's crazy.
But we mentioned guys like Eric Hipple, Charlie Batch. You know, Charlie Batch was handing the ball off to Barry Sanders for a while. You know, in Denver, Bob Greasy's son, Brian Greasy, that stepped in for Elway. Like those guys just and you know, I'm thinking, but when I worked at Pinnacle too, it's like it was so difficult in 96 and 97 because everybody was gravitating toward rookie cards were selling the product, because before that it was inserts of superstars were selling the product. Technology, you know, you wanted the fanciest Dan Marino and Brett Favre cards, and then all of a sudden people clued in, we want rookie cards. Well, those 2 years, the rookie cards were like god awful as far as the market goes, and you know, we had not that they're bad players. There's a lot of Hall of Famers, but there's nobody collectible. Like Orlando Pace is not a collectible player. You know, one year Warwick Dunn and Jim Druckenmiller were the two kind of high, and then the quarterback,
Jake the Snake.
Yeah, Jake Plummer, and then there was the quarterback from Florida State that also played for the Blue Jays, Chris Winkie. He was like 27 years old, and he was coming out of NCAA football. So you know, then '98 came along, and it was Manning and Leaf. And you know, say what you want about Ryan Leaf, but that year he sold a lot of product for card companies because everything was bought on speculation. And I don't know about you, do you ever listen to Ryan Leaf as a commentator on the radio? I don't know if you guys get XM radio, Sirius XM or not, but Ryan Leaf is fantastic on the radio. He's a college analyst. And on XM, Sirius XM, and he's absolutely brilliant as a commentator, and he's very frank, and he's very blunt and honest, but like he's very real, he's very raw, and he breaks the game down like whatever issues he may have had, you know, when he was 21 years old, he certainly doesn't have now, but he's a fantastic analyst, and it's good to see. It's good to see that because he had so many issues and problems and not mature enough to handle the situation he was in at the time, and he'd be the first to admit it. But he is brilliant on the radio if you ever get a chance to listen to him. So,
no, your '97 class, I think that what, Tiki, Barber, Tony Gonzalez, but you also had the likes of a Troy Davis and Byron Hansberg and Pat Barnes. Those were, I remember being quasi excited to pull those guys because I'm like, well, I watched a bunch of Troy Davis at Iowa State because he went over 2,000 yards rushing. But get drafted to that Saints team, it's just like, you're not Dalton Hilliard, so well, guess what? You're gonna like get swallowed by the albatross that is New Orleans.
I paid $20 for a Robert Edwards Chrome rookie to complete my set.
Troy Davis and Robert Edwards both ended up in the Canadian Football League and both did very well up here. Davis was running back with Hamilton and Edwards in Montreal, and they both did really well. Lawrence Phillips up here was a disaster. Johnny Manziel. I actually got to be. I was on the. I was a booth official in Johnny Manziel's first game in Canada, and talent beyond talent, but just, you know, he was the Nuke LaLoosh of football. Like seriously.
Oh, we're going back to Bull Durham.
Yeah, everything in my world is a reference to Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, Seinfeld, or Bugs Bunny, or Harry Potter.
Nothing
so
wrong with that.
We had a kid from France. His name was Niels LaLoosh. So I started calling him Nuke, and he goes, "What does mean Nuke?" I'm like, "Watch Bull Durham." So he comes back. He's like, "I watched the movie. He is Nuke. He's a pitcher." I was like, "Yes, he's a pitcher."
Le lanceur.
He got homesick, so he went home. He scored 4 goals in 3 games, and he's like, "I miss my mom," so he went home.
Was he a soccer player?
Yeah, he was a soccer. I helped with a pro soccer team here in Michigan, and the Michigan Stars, and we just lost in the semifinals. We won it. Then last year we came in second, and this year we came in third. So, good bunch of boys. I'm like the team dad. My wife's like the team mom.
Yeah.
She's like the team sister.
That's great.
It's like everybody else's business. We're like we're the parents of the group. So if somebody's hungry or needs something, that's what we try to fill in and do. And I never thought 47 that I'd be watching soccer constantly. And
46.
I turned 46 and it's like 60 days. So like my dad says, I'll never be 46 again. I'm closer to 47. Anyhow, I never thought my daughter, I wanted her to play hockey. She was playing softball. Nope. Wants to be a goalie or a keeper, excuse me.
Yeah.
Take after the great Cobra sitting next to me.
Oh, shut up. Time check. We're at 2 hours, 40 minutes.
I'm just happy to be here. Baseball's been good to me. The IRP's been good to me.
That's
I'm more focused on Jeff because he said two and a half hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're now past the 2.5 hour mark. So
yeah.
it's coming up on midnight your time there, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, time to chemo up. Didn't get to do this. Didn't get to open these. Should I open one before I go?
Yeah.
Now, this is what these hobby influencer people do, right? They like bust open packs online and then they brag about how many followers they have.
Pretty much.
So,
Yes,
being a writer at sportscollectorsdaily.com, does that make me an influencer then?
No.
No. Okay, so we've got
Unless you wanted to.
Bo Horvat, New York Islanders. Ugh. Okay, I got a boner over this one. Connor Bedard.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, no.
Got a big hobby boner right now. John Tavares.
I like John Tavares.
John
Very
Tavares
underrated.
is a class act.
Yep.
And I don't know if you guys follow pro lacrosse or not. John Tavares' uncle is also named John Tavares, was a star for the Buffalo Bandits in I'll say back in the day, like 10 to 20 years ago, and just a legend in lacrosse. I mean, probably like the Gretzky of lacrosse, and John Tavares, the player, learned so much from him about how to carry yourself, maturity, type of person to be, and you could see that in John Tavares when he played junior. He started playing junior in the OHL when he was 14 years old. He got an exemption. And I watched him play with the Oshawa Generals when he was a young kid. And it's funny, John Tavares and Sidney Crosby are totally cut from the same cloth. And I know I've told you this Sidney Crosby story before, but his first game in Ottawa, Eddie Olczyk was the coach of the Penguins at that time. And if you ever want to read a really, really, really good hockey book, Ed Olczyk has a book out. I read it a year and a half ago, and it was a can't put the book down thing. It was just such a real. It was like sitting at the kitchen table and letting him tell you his life story, and he was very honest about everything, and talked about the time he was coach with the Penguins and his involvement with there. But Sidney Crosby, behind the arena, there's a loading dock in Ottawa, and it's kind of down a hill. And the team buses and the players all park there, and the visiting team get on their bus. They walk in that entrance at the loading dock, and it was minus 40 that day, and there were all kinds of fans that had been out there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, standing by the fence, And I mean, if they would have stuck their tongue to the fence, they'd probably have been there for 6 months. And they were there, and the players are on the bus, and Sidney Crosby's one of the last players out, and he walked up to the bus and sort of stood at the doorway, and then he walked over and signed autographs. 40 below, wet hair, his hands are numb. He's holding a Sharpie and he's signing 8x10s and cards for about half an hour in that weather. And and he's 18 years old, and all of the players on the bus are waiting for him. And I covered the game. I was at the morning skate, and then I covered the game that night. And there was a media scrum with him after the game, and we asked him about it, like about him signing, and he said those people, and again, the maturity of this guy is so off the charts. He said those people work hard. They spend a lot of money that they don't necessarily have to buy tickets and come to the game. And if they're going to stand out for an hour in 40 below weather to get my signature, the least I can do is go over and give them an autograph. And one of the reporters said, well, what did the other players on the team think? Like, they must have been pissed off at you that you held things up. He said, no, they all understand. And like, they're all on board. It was, and I just thought that was for a kid, 18 years old, to have that sense of maturity. And I know that he was influenced a lot by John Tavares, who was the superstar before him. And to see something like that is just it's just great, and that's you don't see that enough with athletes, and it does happen, but we just don't see it because we only see the bad stuff, because that's a sexier story for the media.
Yep.
So on that note, boys, I pulled a Connor Bedard card, so I got that going for me.
Well, thank you, Jeff, joining us again. Good to have you on again anytime you want. You let us know, and I mean, we'll try to fit you on. I mean, we got topics for the next 0 weeks to find out. So, I mean, anytime you want to come on, you're always free to. Even if it's like, I want to come on for a half hour and do this, and then boom, I got a dip or whatever. It will never matter. As long if you need to come on, you want to come on, always welcome. That's an open door policy with you that and always will be. So thank you for joining us. So for Vincenzo, somewhere, Steve, our good friend Jeff, I'm Dave. It's in the IRP. Remember, collecting cards, wonderful hobby. The friendships you forge along the way, that's what really matters. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Go Sens, go.